what we do know for a fact is that there was a serious break between Charlie Kirk and Israel.
Right.
He'd always been an Israel supporter, and that came under huge strain over the last 2 years, and he became more and more outspoken and skeptical and critical about Israel. And 2 days before he died, he told his colleagues he had no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. So there's a real break here, right? And Candace Owens has been talking about this. People have different opinions about Candace Owens. That's fine. I'm not endorsing any political
Yeah.
commentators or pundits here. But she's been talking about her communications with Charlie Kirk in those last months before he was killed. And one of the things she said is that he was having an increasing attraction to Catholicism, and he'd been going to Catholic Mass, and that at one point he texted her.
So this he goes, "We should chat soon. Catholicism is looking better and better." And then he sends a screenshot, right? That's
So
and
then
now
this is how
oh, that's
Candace
Candace's
responds.
screenshot? Okay. Then Candace Owens sends the following screenshot.
This is a Google Ngram chart showing the frequency of the use of the phrase Judeo-Christian over the years from the 1800s to present day. And she even highlights 1940 as like this inflection point where it starts to really rise. Okay, so this seems like some sort of weird non sequitur. I think a lot of people were confused by it, but hopefully to us now, this makes sense. She is saying Judeo Christian is a concept that has been used in effect to corral people of faith, people, especially of the Protestant faith, into this political project of
Right.
supporting Israel.
Even though Israel was, I mean, I guess they were doing the work ahead of time, right? Because I mean, Zionism obviously the project started before the Holocaust, and the Holocaust started earlier than 45, but that's of course when it ends.
Yes. Well, and I would say, if you look at the pre-1940, it does start to rise, but it's very small compared
Right.
to current times, right?
Right.
That is the sort of movement to try to counter fascism and rising anti-Semitism, right? That's when groups like the National Conference of Christians and Jews, NCCJ, is sending out groups of ministers, rabbis, and priests to sort of promote this idea of we're all Judeo-Christian, right? After the Holocaust, it gets very much linked to Zionism, right?
Right.
And to the idea that American Christians have to support Israel as a way of furthering the American and the Christian sort of grand project. And ultimately, for a lot of these evangelicals, right, this is all, again, part of the steps towards the end times, right? The American way of life will spread, the gospel will spread, the Jews will be regathered in Jerusalem, and the second coming will come, and there will be an end times and a judgment day, right? So she is saying, you know, Charlie, you've been co-opted. I think this is what she's implying. She's saying you've been co-opted into this political project, right? Your faith has been exploited to co-opt you into this political project, but that project is starting to fall apart,
Mm.
right? And that's why that line is starting to go down. Okay, it
Wow.
reached a peak and it's starting to go down, right? And Candace is saying you're part of that downward trend. People are starting to become skeptical,
Wow.
right? And to
Yeah.
move away from this whole ideology, right? So I thought that was so once I figured out what was going on in that interaction, I said,
Wow.
"Oh, this is so revealing. This encapsulates
We
so
should
much
have
of what."
you on with Candace Owens. I'm not even kidding. Candace, come on the show.
Look, if
Sam.
you want to, can't she's a complex person like
Yeah.
anyone, and
Sure.
I'm certainly not gonna endorse everything she said or done,
Right.
right? Her YouTube channel right now is the greatest Shakespearean drama of my lifetime, unfolding in real time on
Yeah.
YouTube. It is incredible. Okay, and I think it's very significant, right? Because I think what we're seeing happening is a worldview starting to unravel, okay? And it's happening on both the right and the left, right? So
Yes.
the left was confronted with this choice between Zionism and liberal humanitarian principles. And the left is opting for liberal humanitarian principles, right? People like Zayad's nephews shouldn't be murdered, right? This is where we're coming down.
Right.
On the right, it's messier because there's this deep religious dimension to it that kind of underpins everything, right? but it is starting to come apart, right? Okay, you look at TPUSA functions, it's a mess, okay? It's a hot mess. Like people are uh they're questioning all of this aggressively. And this relationship, this distinction between Catholic and Protestant is part of it, okay? And so basically just lastly, the last sort of point I wanted to make is people have talked about was there a unipolar moment and now we're going into multipolarity.
Yeah.
And I tend to be sort of skeptical of that because I don't know to what degree the 1990s really were unipolar and to what degree the US really was the one all dominating power. I think that there's always give and take, right? And a hegemony, if you think of the Gramscian, Marxian notion of hegemony, it's not just total top-down domination, right? It's a system with a set of shared terms and norms, and there's usually a central power, but other people can push back, right? They can use those terms, they can use those laws, those rules to push back. So I'm skeptical how much there was a unipolar moment. And when you say multipolar, it sounds weird to me. It sounds like you're assuming that the norm is to have only one pole, and it's somehow weird or an aberration to have more than one. I think what
Hmm.
is happening is that sort of confidence and belief, that sort of hegemonic global way of viewing the world is what's coming apart. And what is going to happen next? Maybe we're going into a multipolar world. I don't know. I think that what's going to happen is that it's another crisis. Uh, Israel is at the middle of it. A lot of it is going to hinge on what happens to Israel. And I don't think it's sustainable. I don't think Israel can continue, certainly not in the form that it's been in. There's going to be a crisis and then there'll be a new globalism. I think a new globalism will take shape that will replace this one. Uh, and I don't know what it'll be, but I think the Catholic Church might play a significant part in it. And we have a new pope and he's American. That would have been unimaginable even 1 year ago, an American pope. Okay. There's a shift happening where I think uh, people talk about America first, right? America first, not Israel first.
Right.
Reasserting loyalty to America, right? And seeing America as a nation state and not as a global entity, right? And the fact that the Pope is American,
Hmm.
I think that is another factor that's going to help pave the way where a lot of these people we've been thinking of as MAGA or America First, more on the politically on the right, I think they're going to be attracted more and more to Catholicism. And I think there's going to be a realignment there. And that again, that would have been unthinkable even 50 years ago, let alone 100 years ago. That people who would say, "Well, I'm patriotic American, I put America first, therefore I'm going to convert to Catholicism."